Hello and welcome to Inside Athletic, the brand new Dunfermline Athletic official club podcast, brought to you by myself, David Buick, and my co-host Andrew Morrison. Andrew, looking forward to this new venture, the covering the Pars, getting a bit of a behind-the-scenes scoop as well.
Absolutely, it'll be absolutely brilliant, David. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be good to give the fans a nice wee insight into, the sort of person behind the player, as you will.
And we've got a bit of a treat as well for the opening episode. Later on, we'll be talking to Dunfermline Athletics vice captain and the 2023-24 Centenary Club Lifeline Player of the Year, Chris Hamilton. We're looking forward to that. Lots to talk about with Hammy, from stuff prior to him joining the Pars, his early career, his appearance in the Scotland youth setup. His time at Arbroath, obviously had a great time there. And then, of course, looking back at last season's brilliant League One winning team, and then also getting a bit of an insight into the challenges that we've faced this season. Obviously, it's been a tough season. It's been a season full of highs and lows, anyway, Andrew. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he has to say on everything that's happened, sort of in the dressing room, and kind of how it's been for the players as well as us, the supporters.
It has been a tough season at times. We've been very unfortunate with things like injuries. It's been hard to sort of get any sort of consistency with the squad together. There's been, it seems like a case of we get one player back and then the next week someone else is injured, and it's been very sort of mishmash at times. But at the end of the day, look, we've came into a league that was a step up from the league we're in last season, and we've survived. We've got a good chance to go and take this young squad and build on our successes this season and take that into next year and what's going to be another very competitive Cinch Championship. But fingers crossed, the lads will, they'll have that extra year of championship experience under their belt, and they'll be able to take that forward and get some results in the league.
Absolutely, and I think there's absolutely no denying that it's been tough at times. But again, I think we've seen enough in certain games that when we have had our team fully strength, and had pretty much the full squad to pick from, the rare occasions that's happened, we've looked more than good enough to compete with anyone. So there's lots to be positive about. I'm sure it's going to be a big summer ahead. Just to briefly look back at this season, obviously there's been a few bits and pieces of news, as there always is at the end of the season. Obviously, we mentioned Hammy winning Player of the Year there. He was it was definitely a standout choice. Too, also picked up young player. And for me, I mean, they were the two I voted for, Andrew. I don't know about yourself.
No, the exact same, David. The absolute exact same. At the end of the day, I think that their performances throughout the most difficult points in the seasons, and even at the high points in the seasons, were always very, very good, always to a good standard. And I don't think there's any two players more deserving of the
Yeah,
awards than those two.
absolutely. And of course, at the end of the season, we've seen them both play in midfield together, which is where I think the manager probably sees two's best position is centre midfield. I think we can all probably agree with that now. He's been absolutely outstanding when he's been in there. But a lot of the time, Hammy and have played centre half, two of the back three. I've not seen a centre half as short as Hammy win as many headers as he has done against so many of these tall strikers like this year. He's been brilliant in there and when he's been in midfield. So yeah, definitely two deserving winners. Josh Edwards also was named in the league team of the season. Sorry, he was voted as a left back in that. Obviously, that vote is done by the fellow professionals, other players in the league. So no surprise to see Josh get that kind of recognition from the rest of the league because I mean he's been an absolute mainstay in this Dunfermline team for years now.
The amount of times we've said Josh Edwards has been a key performer for a number of years now, is it shows how good a player he is. He's now beginning to add more goals to his game, which definitely complements his sort of general sort of attacking wing back type of play. So things like the goals and the amount of assists he's contributing to as well. Although that's nothing new, it shows that he's his hard work's being recognised not only by the players on the team and by the coaching staff at the Pars, but by other players in the league. And full credit to him because he's been a very solid left back in this sort of tier in the past, and his performance level just gets better and better as the standard of the league itself gets better and better. So yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely deserving in my
I
opinion.
think going through the squad, Josh is probably the only player that hasn't faced an injury this season. And again, pretty much every season of the last three, I can remember he's played pretty much every single game. So no surprise to see him acknowledged by his fellow pros and absolutely deserving of that. Other bits of news, obviously the reserves winning the Reserve Cup a couple of weeks ago. That was a great wee night through it. Almondvale, the Tony Macaroni, I don't know what the spaghetti had. I don't know what it's called now. I think they renamed it again, haven't they? But that was
Any
a
of the
good
above,
night.
any of the above.
The Sutherland brothers on target as the Pars won 2-1. And it was a decent wee crowd that seemed to go through to follow them as well, which was nice
Yeah,
to see. And great for the
absolutely.
young lads to win some silverware.
100%. They would have seen it in the first team last year, picking up the League One trophy. And these guys in the changing rooms, your Benedictuses, your your Craig Whitings and like the likes of Chris Hamilton, even, who will be on later on to discuss his time at the Pars. These guys will have a big impact on the young lads, especially with the construction of the training ground in Rosyth. These, the young reserve players are going to be playing only a couple hundred yards from these guys who have done an awful lot in the professional game, particularly in Scotland, so they're going to be able to take a few bits of advice from them here and there. And look, at the moment, it looks like that's working already, by having this sort of first team and youth squad integrated. The wisdom's going to be able to pass down to these guys, and it's currently reflecting onto the pitch anyway, especially with that trophy win. And the likes of Sutherland and Taylor and Jake Sutherland, as you mentioned before, it's great to see them getting on the score sheet. And I don't know how many appearances Taylor's made for the first team, but he's looked like a real handful every time he's came on, So it's good for them to get the sort of game time in the reserve squad, and from there maybe even make an impact on the first team.
Yeah, of course, and it's good to see that pathway is definitely there. Andy Todd, another one who's had a tough season with injury, but again, we know his quality. He gets good minutes there at the weekend for the first team against Inverness. And again, I think he started at the opening game of this season, and he was certainly involved in the early part until he was injured. And his assist for Jake's goal on Wednesday night last week was a bit of class as well. But yeah, obviously as well, the training ground at Rosyth, the players are in now on the pitches, which is great. That's obviously been a process that's had its difficulties, certainly by the sounds of it, but it's great to have the first team there and the academy all in one place. And I think it's good. You'll see the academy guys get onto that pitch before or after the first team and going, God, I wish I was in that first team change room. Wish I was out with them, and that should drive them on. But definitely for the club, it's great to have the training ground sorted.
Oh, it's a brilliant asset, David. It's good. Not only is it going to be great for the players we have currently, but I mean, I can't think of another team in the Championship, maybe out with Dundee United, but they're soon to be Premiership anyway. Can't think of another team in the league that will have the sort of facilities that Dunfermline have with regards to this training ground. So it's going to be a real asset to try and get players on side and trying to get players to come and join Dunfermline. And as you said, it's just great to have everyone playing out of the same sort of area, the same sort of base, and it can, as I briefly touched on earlier, allow these young lads to come in and train alongside the first team and sort of have something to aim for, but there's like an end goal in sight almost for these lads. So yeah, very promising, good times on and off the pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Dunfermline have just confirmed their survival and place in the Championship next season after that draw with Inverness on Saturday. Again, if you'd looked at where we were maybe 3 months ago after a couple of heavy defeats and with, hardly able to fill a bench, I think at that time we all, I'd imagine worried that what could have happened. So it's good that we managed to get the players fit and we have secured our place in the league for next season, and that gives us something to look forward to, and I'm sure it'll be a big summer.
Yeah, I mean, look, in the Championship, there's a lot of moving and shaking with clubs. A lot of players out of contract, a lot of players playing for contracts. There's a lot of movement in general between the clubs. So, for us to have a wee bit of solidity with the sort of lengths of contracts we have, a number of first team players on, and, just to know where we'll be playing next season, what division we'll be playing in, who will be playing next season, what are these guys going to be able to bring in. It's good to have that sort of comfort, and especially, as you mentioned, the amount of challenges that we face this season, with things like injuries and whatnot. It's good to just have that sort of stability to say, look, this is where we're going to be next season. Job done, stayed up. Now it's time to build and hopefully maybe a playoff place next season. Certainly push for the top half of the table.
Absolutely, I think that's certainly going to be the aim for the squad now after getting that first season under the belt. So now we're going to head over to be joined by Chris Hamilton shortly. Looking forward to getting his insight into everything we've discussed and kind of what it's been like from the players' point of view this season. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what Chris has to say. Now, we're now joined by Dunfermline Athletic Vice Captain Chris Hamilton. Chris, thank you very much for joining us. How's things, mate? You all good?
Yeah, all good. Yeah, all good. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. Obviously, we are going to look back at this season as well as earlier stuff in Chris's career and kind of lift the lid a little bit on what it's been like in the camp this season. Obviously, it's been a bit of an up and down year, as I'm sure we'll all agree. But first of all, Chris, you've just been awarded the Centurion Club Lifeline Player of the Year. That's a massive accolade for you. You must be absolutely delighted with that.
Yeah, it was. Really proud moment. Obviously, growing up a Dunfermline fan and things like that, it's to claim the club is a big thing, and interim Player of the Year, a really big thing. Like you say, it's been a tough season. So to come out of that, having helped the team and helped the boys and getting players played and and like you said, the player of the year as well. Yeah, it meant a lot.
Proud for having, I'm sure you had some of the family there as well. It'll be a proud moment for them also.
Yeah, my dad was there lapping it up. The happiest man in the room. He took the trophies home with him, so yeah, a few photos on and things like that. But nah, everyone's delighted for me, and yeah, it means a lot to the family. They come every week to support me and watch, and I've done ever since I started playing football. So yeah, when I get these things, it's more a recognition of everything they've done for me and things like that to get me to where I am. So yeah, it means a lot to all of us.
Speaking of where you've got to and where you've came from, Andy was up all last night researching every little bit of your career history.
Been boring.
He's a busy boy, but
embarrassing me.
no, you've done your research, mate. You've got to get your credit where it's due. So Andy, yeah, let's go back to the early days of Chris Hamilton as a player.
Right, Chris. First and foremost, Pars mini kickers, age 4. Any standout memories from that sort of era supporting the club? You know, any standout players? Any favourite players at that time?
I'm trying to think. I can't really remember back to that age, but I always remember that this first sort of memory I had watching Dunfermline anyway was going with my grandpa. We went to watch, I think they played Celtic. And I think, I can't remember the exact scoreline, but I think it was something like 8-1 or something like that. We got beat.
Oh, yeah. Neil Lennon scored and everything.
That was my first sort of memory because I remember that day, like we were all deciding what to do, and my grandpa said, we'll go to the football. And my dad and my brother ended up going to pictures or something, I think, and we ended up going to the football. And after it was like, that was the worst decision we've made, sitting watching that. Yeah, but Pars, like the mini kickers and things like that, that's sort of the earliest memories I have of just going and playing football and that and being with your pals, and it's not really football at that stage, is it? It's just sort of running around and being up here in the arse, probably. I don't know if I can say it. But
we'll find it after. If not, we'll edit it
out. So good memories.
Yeah. Aye, and then from there, was it Crossgates Primrose you were at next before joining Hearts?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, so my dad and my just pretty much my pals from school and things like that, one of their dads put a team together, and it was just sort of me, all my mates, and then yeah, it's probably like the best time of growing up playing football. Like no pressure on you, just going playing every Saturday or Sunday, whatever it was, and enjoying it down at Petrive, and we had a good team. So a couple of really good memories growing up playing that, and yeah, it's sort of my best early memories of football.
And then from there, I suppose, obviously, as I said, joined Hearts. How did you find the transition from boys club football to going to play at Hearts?
Yeah, I think at that age, it's like the biggest thing ever. Obviously, like that's what you dream as of growing up, like, oh, you want to sign for like these teams and things like that. I was actually training with Dunfermline at the same time as I was training with Hearts, and I think both of them had sort of asked me to go in to sign for them. So at that stage, it was like a bit of I didn't know what to do. And then I think we ended up like the facilities and the structure and all that at Hearts, and how like big a club it was and things like that. It was sort of decided to go down that route. And yeah, I think the transition was easy because a few of the players that I'd played with in that Crossgates team as well were in like trialing and training at the same time, and then a few people that I knew were in as well. So it was quite easy. But like I say, Crossgates was probably like the happiest time I'd been in football. So like to leave that to go then play with Hearts and train with Hearts all the time, like it was a big thing. But looking back now, like it's definitely the best decision I could have made.
I take it there were some big characters in that Hearts changing room at that time as well. Again, these are probably guys you'd been watching the telly as well. Like how was that? Going into a big club, as you say, like Hearts, just kind of adapting to that kind of change room, that kind of environment.
Yeah, it was mental. I think like you obviously, because they all train at the same place. So even when you're obviously younger, you're in at night, so you don't really see the first team boys a lot. But sort of when you did see them or watch them on the TV, and you think that you're playing for the same club as them and things like that, and the odd time you've seen them kicking around and things, like it's pretty mad.
Yeah, we were talking earlier on about obviously the training ground at Rosyth now, and obviously that's going to have the first team in the academy. kind of in the same base. For you as a young player, looking at those older players at Hearts, that must have given you a bit of fire in the belly, a bit between the teeth to kind of go, right, I'm going to be training with them. Seeing them every day, driving you on to make sure that you progress from the youths into the first team.
Yeah, definitely. I think Hearts is one of those clubs as well that I've always tried to like promote youth and things like that. So as you get up the age groups and you see boys that you knew that were maybe a couple of age groups above you like a few years ago, and they're maybe getting a chance on the bench or coming on to make their first team appearances and things, like that definitely does give you that sort of boost and incentive to keep working hard, and you start to see that pathway that one day that could be you.
Well, speaking of first team appearances, you made your debut age 16 in a 1-0 defeat to Kilmarnock in 2018, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I think.
Oh, research is spot on.
Yeah, no, that's right. I think the season, it was the last game of the season. I think everyone had got to that stage of the season that boys had got so many yellow cards throughout the season that if they got one more, they would miss this game. I don't think it meant much. I think they were in the top six. They had nothing really to play for. So I think, again, I don't know if I should be saying this, but I think they'd maybe been booked deliberately or unfortunately in the game before that, so that they missed the Kilmarnock games. I think it got to the point where there was a lot of defenders missing. So no, I'd been close a few times. I think that season I'd been on the bench a few times and been close to coming on. But no, like you said, to make my debut the last game of the season, it was good, but it was also one of them that you get that such a high from making your debut, and like obviously after that you'd be want to go back in and get more and more, but it was just time to break off for the summer. So it was one of those, it was like I was buzzing I got it, but then I wanted to try and kick on and see if I could play more games, whatever, but unfortunately it was time to break off.
So what are your sort of memories from that game then? Because was it Chris Boyd you were defending initially alongside Aaron Hughes at the back? What was it sort of like having to defend against a player of Chris Boyd's calibre, but also being partnered with, a defender with like international experience, international caps?
You'd have been doing his running, Chrissy, surely.
Yeah. It was crazy. Like you said, like obviously I knew Kilmarnock, I think they had a really good season that season as well. So I knew I'd be coming up against Chris Boyd, and I'm not the biggest now, but back then I was probably even smaller and not as big. So I knew it was going to be a challenge, but there wasn't a lot riding on the game. It wasn't like a big pressurised game. So I think it was one of those for me that I could just go out and try and prove that like I could play at that level. Like I'd done well throughout the year at under 20s and things, and I'd been wanting more opportunities. So I just seen it more like as an opportunity to go and prove to people that I can play, especially in that position. Against a big striker, and like you say, playing against Aaron Hughes was crazy. Like the career he's had is like unbelievable. So to play alongside him, like the experience, and he like helped me through the game so much, so made it so much easier. But yeah, what a player he was, and what a guy as well.
Well, I suppose it kind of leads on to the next bit. It was Levine that sort of handed you your debut in this game, and he had quite a lot of positive things to say about you after the game. How big a character was Levine in sort of in terms of your career development? How big an impact do you think he had on your overall game?
Yeah, massive. Probably one of the biggest influence I've had in my career so far, because he was director of football obviously at Hearts before he came the first team manager. So he had a lot to do with us before he came the manager as well, and it was pretty influential. He was there around the training ground a lot, watching games and watching training and speaking to us and things. So, and then when he got the manager's job, it didn't really change. He wasn't one of them that was scared to come and talk to the young boys and be around us as well. He was always wanting to help us, and always asking how we were getting on in training and how training was, and always coming to watch our reserve games and things like that. So he was one of them. Him being a defender as well, when he played, he was always trying to help me, and like you say, he was a massive character as well, and somebody that you always wanted to impress, and whenever he was watching, you wanted to catch his eye. And to be fair, like I say, he gave me an opportunity at such a young age. So yeah, very thankful what he's done for me so far in my career.
He was famous, of course, Craig Levein as well, for getting bandaged up after a few head knocks. You've definitely led by example and followed his lead in that
Yeah,
regard as well.
a few of them. He taught me how to pick up a few of them.
So it was shortly after then your debut that you were called up to the Scotland under-21 squad. Was it in replacement of Ross McCrory after he was forced to pull out from injury? Or how did that come about?
I don't actually. I think half of Scotland must have been away on holiday or injured or something like that. But no, it was it was crazy. I'd made my debut and I was getting ready for a bit of chill time, going holiday and things like that, and enjoy my summer. And then I got a phone call one day from, I think it was Kirsty Mullen at Scotland, just to say that I'd been called up to the Scotland 21s and we were going away to Toulon for the Toulon tournament. So to be fair, at that stage when she said that, I didn't actually know the ins and outs of it and things like that. But like, it was an unbelievable experience, like such a big tournament, playing with good players. And yeah, that was a crazy point in my career.
Yeah, obviously, again, I watched I'm sure you were going to mention this, the Billy Gilmore documentary that was out recently.
Yeah.
You were front and centre on that. First of all, what kind of royalties are we talking about from the SFA? What was there money there, Chris? What was the script there?
Nothing, all free, all voluntary. So
It's a 26-man squad now. Surely Billy can be like to Steve. Come on, we play a back three. Come on, surely there's a way in there.
I know, maybe we'll see.
But what was he? I mean, I listened to that. Obviously, fantastic player. But you just go way back. You played for him since you were a kid. And did you know even back then, when you first started playing with him, he was going to be top level?
Yeah, played against him a lot. He obviously went to performance school as well. So when we done those wee festivals that we done against each other, played against him, always knew that he was a very good player. And then sort of started playing with him at Scotland, and then throughout the age groups, just seen him get better and better. And that's when I kind of knew that he was going to be a very good player. I didn't realise how good and how big he was going to become so quickly. But yeah, like that Toulon tournament was probably the first time that I realised that he could probably go and do whatever he wants in the game, and he just had that ability that was frightening. He had that character that was like, he thought and knew he was as good as anyone else. And I think that's what it takes to go to the level and play at the level that he's at just now. So a very good player and a very good boy as well. Like, spent a lot of time with him at the Toulon tournament, shared a room with him and things, and got on with him really well. So I'm delighted how well he's done.
Yeah, obviously he's gone to loads of strength. I mean, he's probably Scotland's standard centre midfield player now. But yeah, you still keep in touch with him? Like, any chance of some tickets for Germany?
Nah, I wouldn't try that. I think at last I messaged him when he got into a squad. I think the last Euros or whatever it was, just to say well done. But nah, I think he's got enough people messaging him and things like that for tickets. So
I would imagine so.
Yeah.
So, in terms of the other players that were in that squad, then, Chris, I believe the likes of Greg Taylor and Mikey Johnson were there, but none better than Craig Whiting himself. Was it a game against Turkey you started together in?
Yeah, I think so. I think we say it was the most important game of the tournament. I think it was the third and fourth place playoffs, so it was obviously such a big one for us. I think don't even did much before that, but obviously that was the first time I came across Whitey, and straight away, just like, what a guy. It was obviously me and Billy's first time being involved with the 21 squad. Like, we were both still really young. So going away for, I think it was 20 days, we ended up being away or something like that. It was crazy. But him and Greg Taylor, boys like that, really like made us feel welcome. And like, I don't know if you know what Whitey's like, but just like such a big character, and really helped me settle in. And then that was just our friendship, and that has continued on from there.
Yeah, so it seems like you, him, and Benny are certainly like the three amigos in this group at the moment. There's a clip I've got saved to my phone, and every time we go on a night out, it gets used. It's the three of you after the league winning last season. What we're doing tonight, we're on it. I think we use that every weekend, that clip.
Two legends, to be fair. Two really good guys. that again have been really good for me in terms of football, and the way we get on off the pitch as well is brilliant. So it really helps you settle in at a club and really feel at home. Like, I enjoy going in every day training to see them and just get a laugh and get a chat and things like that, and the nights out we have and things like that is like, it's incredible.
Yeah, no, it's good. The team spirit in the group seems to be something that's thriving. We'll come back to that again later. Again, we want to move forward. We're talking big characters. Obviously, you spent a great year at Arbroath. And again, I think it's written in law somewhere that you can't have a Scottish football podcast without talking about Dick Campbell. And we've got to get a Dick Campbell story in there somehow. What was he like? Obviously, what a season, that last season at Arbroath as well. You know, what a time to be at that club.
It was mental. It was a weird one how sort of it came about. I'd been told by Hearts that I wasn't getting a contract the next year, so I was always going to look to go out on loan. And I'd been at Stirling the year before on loan, and I was getting into pre-season, and I was doing pre-season with the reserves at Hearts, and I'd been there and done it, and I was getting a bit fed up, and I just wanted to go out on loan so I could focus on something else. So I think I spoke to Stirling about going back there, and it was close to getting done, and then it kept on getting delayed, and then my agent phoned me one night and said that he'd just spoke to Dick Campbell, and he wanted me to go up and do a few training sessions with them, and just see how I got on. So I went up, and I trained, I think, once, and then we played a friendly match against St Johnstone, and I remember, so I'd met him at training, and then I'd walked into the ground and things like that, and I started getting changed, and I think it was John Young came and got me and said that the managers want to see you in his office. So I was like, oh God. So I walked through, and he was just sitting there with his TV on, and his tracksuit, and was like, just handed me a tray with like 3 mugs on it and went, right, go make the tea, son. So I ended up, first thing I'd done, I'd hardly met him, hardly met Pink or Youngie, Rab, any of them. And they just all kind of looked at me, and they handed me this tray and was like, go make your cups of tea, son. So I had to go through the kitchen, make them all a cup of tea, and then gave them, and he was like, right, okay, I'll see you in a bit. And went out, played the game, like done well and things like that. And then he pulled me in after it and was like, like, what you want to do? And I was just like, well, I want to come here on loan, like that's what I want to do. And he was like, right, okay, like we'll get it done then. And then that was it. Like, that was it from there. Signed the next week, and again, just the way it worked out, like, incredible. Couldn't have asked for like a better season. Such a good group of boys, and learned so much playing men's football for a full season. My first full season at one club, and nearly an unbelievable season. But in terms of how much I learned and how much I got from it, it was one of the best seasons I could ask for.
Yeah, I mean, that story was, I felt like everyone in Scottish football was rooting for Arbroath to win the league that year. How much of the success do you think, obviously that story there sounds like typical Dick Campbell, how much of the success of that group is about him keeping players grounded, especially when things are going well? Because he strikes me as the kind of guy that doesn't really change whether you're winning, losing, or drawing. He just has to kind of keep the team grounded and focused.
Well, I think, yeah, like you said, to be fair, the changing room was very good. Anyway, we've had a lot of experienced boys in there that maybe hadn't been and done something like that, but had just been around the block. And I think with them being part time, and I think they're all quite grounded anyway. None of them ever got ahead of themselves, and we were all just enjoying it. I think really was we couldn't really believe the situation that we were in, and we were just taking it game by game. And I think everyone was just waiting on us slipping up at some point to. No one expected us to keep going, and I don't think we had that pressure on ourselves. But now, like I say, no one ever sort of was saying, "Oh, like we could do this" or anything. It was never really like that. But I remember Dick used to. I think the closer it got, and obviously like we started to get a bit of attention on us. People like were wanting to do interviews and things like that, and Dick had said to us, like, I'm not wanting anyone doing any interviews with the press. I don't want anyone speaking about it. I don't want the limelight on us. Like, keep it away from us. We'll be fine. So everyone's like, all right, okay. And then we came to training on the Monday night, and the Sky Sports cameras were there interviewing Dick. He was getting interviewed, and that night he was on Sky Sports, a big bit about Dick and like we're going to win the league and things like that. So again,
yeah, Jeff Stelling was interviewing, was he not, on Soccer Saturday? Was that not a thing as well? I'm sure.
And then he was on Soccer Saturday the next week, a big bit on about him, but. I think like he was just enjoying it. I think everyone was enjoying it, and like I say, we came up a wee bit short in the end, but just an experience. It was crazy, and it's certainly helped me in my career.
In terms of players in that team, Big Nubly, he was in that team, wasn't he? What a player he was!
Yeah, again, unbelievable. We only had him for half a season. I think if we'd kept on to him for the rest of the season, I think we probably would have went and won the league. It was that big, and for us and how we played and getting us up the pitch and making nothing balls into big chances and things like that. It was a big help for us. But obviously we lost them in the January. Livingston took them back, but then it didn't really affect us that much. I think we brought in Jack Hamilton at that point, and Whitey came as well, and both helped us kind of kick on, and then, like I say, we were so close that the night in Kilmarnock was, I think we were about 15 minutes away from doing it, so it was fine margins in the end. But yeah, it's some incredible players. Mikey McKenna was unbelievable that season. Tam O'Brien. People like Jason Thompson as well, like just experienced players that just you knew what you were getting from them every week, and always turned up every week, and were so consistent. And I think that's what kind of got us where we were. We weren't up and down. We were just so consistent. I think we'd got so many draws throughout the year, but we were turning defeats into draws and hanging on for draws that probably would have went to defeats. So it was that experience in the changing room and all those players that had the know-how to win games and get points out of games was probably the biggest thing.
I'm getting terrible flashbacks of that season, just in what Nubly did to Dunfermline as well that year as well. Yeah. God, it's a season I never wanted to be reminded of, but now it's just come back to me. But anyway, obviously, Andy, Dunfermline did get relegated that season down to League One. And the first two signings, obviously, McPake made were Benny and Chris. I don't know about you, Andrew, but at the time, I couldn't believe it would sign Chris. And then, it turned out to be a decent signing so far.
Absolutely. I mean, Young Player of the Year award at Arbroath, not half bad. Second in the Championship, coming down to League One. How did the move come about? Firstly, to come to Dunfermline?
So it's one of those. I'd never been in the sort of position of a contract in the summer, and sort of Arbroath had offered me obviously a contract there, but I wanted to try and stay full time. So I was speaking to a few clubs, and I think the situation at Dunfermline was the manager had just been sacked or left. So they were obviously looking to bring someone in. So I never really, I knew there was a wee bit of interest. When I think it was Yogi that was there at the time, I think there was a wee bit of interest, but then obviously when he left, I thought that was probably out the window, not going to happen. So started looking at other options and things like that. And then my agent phoned me and just said that they'd spoke to Dunfermline and they were still interested in things like that. So I actually went away on holiday with a few of the Arbroath boys to Portugal, and I was texting my agent at the same time, trying to see what was happening, try to get it sorted. And then it said that the manager was wanting to see me when I came back for just a wee chat and a wee walk around the stadium and things. So I flew back from Portugal when I was going on holiday the next day with my girlfriend. So I got off the plane and drove straight to East End Park, met the manager, had a really good chat, had a walk about, and after when I came away from that, it was pretty much done. Like, I knew I was signing and things, so I was good. And then went away on holiday, and then was still probably doing her head in. But I was texting most days trying to get it sorted. Was it getting sorted now? And then eventually everything got through. And yeah, like I say, like when it got announced and that, was just buzzing. Like it was such a crazy feeling. Like I say, like being a fan and things like that. So to see it like getting announced and things like that, it was crazy. So yeah, that's how it all came about, kind of.
When you went into the ground for that water and the place with the gaffer, was Matty still out doing laps? Because it seemed like every new signing was getting announced and Matty was doing laps in the background.
That's nah, I think he's home by that point. But nah, I think I think he's only took a couple of weeks off and then he just started running around East End.
So obviously coming into Dunfermline, things are a bit doom and gloom, just relegated from the Championship. How did you find that first sort of pre-season friendly with the boys? Was it very upbeat, or what was it like initially going into the changing room after they'd just relegated?
Nah, I think obviously the one thing about the manager is that he wanted to get that sort of good feeling back, and he wanted a changing room that was excited and buzzing sort of for the season, and try to not really right wrongs, because like the season was finished and there was nothing we could have done about it, but just sort of start again, start fresh, and obviously use it as motivation to get back to where we thought we belonged. So it was. I mean, the boys were still obviously hurting, and I think disappointed in what had happened and how it had all happened. But it was something that was addressed very quickly, and just a case of that we need to move on. Like it was going to be such a big season, and what could have been a really good season and turned out to be a really good season. So I think straight away it was addressed, and then just used as motivation to try and see if we could get back into the Championship and have another crack at it. So no, it wasn't really something that lingered very long.
It ends up being a fantastic season. I mean, just as a supporter, I mean, the amount of times I've rewatched highlights and stuff from certain games last season, I mean, some of the moments in games we had that year were absolutely outstanding. But in particular, I think the start of the season was probably slow is maybe harsh, but we didn't really kick on until maybe mid part of the season. I think of that first Falkirk away game, the game through there, that win really kicked us on. For you as a fan, of the club, having then signed for the club that day, what was that like for you? Because for me, that in that season, it felt like we're really starting to motor forward here.
Yeah, I think that was the sort of games and the moments that like I'd speak to my brother and things about that, and the manager spoke to me about when I first went to see him was the big games against Falkirk, playing against Falkirk away with that the travelling fans, and I mean what we could have done and how good those moments would be. So when, like you said, we started okay, but nothing amazing. But I think people maybe didn't realise that it was still a hard league, and when a big team drops down, for teams coming to East End, and when we go to there, it's like the cup final kind of thing. It's everyone's up for it. The fans are up for it. They want to just get a point against us. They want to beat us. So I think that was obviously a challenge. And like you say, coming off the back of a tough season, it was maybe just took us a bit of time to get going. But yeah, the one away to Falkirk was I think it was Whitey's head at the back post, wasn't it? That and the scenes after that was crazy, and I think it made all the boys realise that if we did continue on and keep going, that it could have been a very successful and enjoyable season. And I think that was the biggest thing out of it. The boys enjoyed the season. I don't think at any time did we feel pressure or sort of worrying about anything else. It was just a case of focusing on ourselves and enjoying it as much as we could. And I think we done that for most of the season.
Yeah, obviously we seem to find consistency. It is a hard league. Some teams take 3, 4, 5 years to get out of it, but we managed to do it pretty quickly. But there was those other big games as well. Before I come to the Falkirk 2-0 game that kind of sealed it, what's going through your head? What were we 2-0 down? Airdrie. You and Joe are hooked on, was it half an hour, I think?
Yeah.
Walking off that pitch, you must have thought, God, what have we done here? This is going to be a long afternoon. And then it turns out to be one of the most memorable games I'm sure any of us have ever seen or even heard of.
Yeah, no, it was one of those because I think as well. I think Falkirk could drop points that midweek. So I think we had a chance to open the gap up to 8 or something like that. So it was a big game, and obviously we knew Airdrie were a good team, but to be 2-0 down or 1-0 down, I think it was when me and Joe came off, and we just could not get going in the game, and nothing we were doing seemed to work. They were all over us and creating chances left, right, and centre, and credit to the manager, he had to change it, he had to do something, and I think I would speak for Joe as well. I know that if things need to be changed for the team, for the good of the team, then we're happy for that to happen. Obviously frustrated, probably with how things were going and things like that. But if it's at that stage, it's always all about the team. And if it was going to change things to help the team, then that's what had to happen. And it turns out that it was the right decision, and we go on. And I don't think he probably would have seen what was coming, but to go 3-0 down and then slowly claw our way back and get the win was incredible just for that game. But what it meant for the league as well at the time, it was massive. Probably a big turning point in terms of, it's like I'm sure Falkirk would have been sitting watching the scores come in and would have been delighted when it was 3-0 and thought that we hadn't capitalised on them dropping points. And then when they seen the goals go in, it probably would have been a nightmare for them as well. So it was a big turning point, and such an exciting game, and one that I think everyone will remember for a while.
Yeah, obviously, I think that was the moment where I think we all started to kind of know, if we were almost there. That was a big hurdle, and then the Falkirk 2-0 game in front of a packed house. What a night that was! I mean, that's something I'll never forget. I'm sure you're the same.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was one of those games that you get messages a few days before from people that you haven't spoken to in a while, asking for tickets and saying good luck and things like that. And I think when the only other time that's happened was when we were playing Kilmarnock with Arbroath. So I knew it was sort of a big game. I knew it was a big game for us, but I knew there was talk out with sort of Dunfermline and Falkirk about how big a game it was and things like that. So, but again, it was one that we went into sort of with no real pressure. We knew that we kind of had control of the situation, and we knew that if we performed on the night, that we'd get the result. And I think again that's where the manager probably deserves credit, that we were never going into those games with pressure on us or feeling that we had to win this or we had to do that. It was just an enjoyable week leading up to it, and we all went in sort of ready to go. And the scenes when we scored the goals and after the game, kind of knowing that was we had maybe one hand on it at that point. It was incredible. The crowd that was there and things like that is, like I say, the reason I signed for the club. The thinking of those nights and then them actually happening was incredible.
So fast forward a month or so on from then, Chris, and eventually we did secure the title in a 5-0 home win against Queen of the South. What are your sort of memories of that day? Because as a fan, I can assure you that was absolutely unbelievable.
No, it was meant just from the few days leading up to it, planning obviously what we were going to do after it and things like that was just crazy. And then the actual game couldn't have went kind of any better, because I think Queen of the South were a good team that year, and it was still going to be a tough game, but it was one of those games that everything went right for us. We started well, got a few goals early on, and just kicked on. And then once the sort of crowd got into it and we got a few goals up, I think nothing else was really going to happen apart from a decent win. But yeah, a good win. And then as soon as the whistle went, it was just about celebrating and enjoying it. And like I said at the start, and being able to enjoy it with my family, being there and being able to celebrate with them and getting them on the pitch and things like that was crazy. So yeah, by far the most enjoyable day that I've had in my career. And then to do it, especially with that group of boys, like I say, really enjoyable. And the night we had after that, celebrating and things, was incredible.
Yeah, obviously that gets us back into the championship, which we're all delighted to do at the first time of asking. And again, as I said it earlier, look back at that season, we did it in a bit of style as well, which was good. On to this season, me and Andy were talking there earlier. It's been a long season. I'm sure for you guys as well as us. It's been a long season full of highs and lows, lots of challenges. And again, I don't want to have to talk about this, but it's been one of the main themes of the season: injuries, 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 injuries. For you personally, we'll come to you. Obviously, you've had a few as well yourself that you've had to play through. But just kind of take us into what it's been like in the dressing room, because it must have been really tough. It felt like for months and months, every time someone came back fit, we lost another two, and the team was changing constantly. For the boys, that must have been really, really mentally challenging.
Really frustrating because I think we went into it with a bit momentum and obviously confident that I think always the objective was to stay in the league, because like what had happened the previous year we were in it showed you how difficult it is just to do that. So I think that was always the objective. We weren't too far ahead of ourselves, but we knew we had a strong squad, and we just wanted to give it a good go. And then, like you say, the injuries, I've never seen anything like it. It was just like not even just wee injuries that boys were out for a couple of weeks. It seemed to just be one after another that boys were going for scans and coming back with 8 to 10 weeks and 12 weeks and things like that. And then as soon as one person got back, it'd be another person or the same person out. So frustrating for us being on the pitch, but also the players that were injured and not being able to be on the pitch and not being able to help. I think it was even more frustrating for them. So, like I say, I've never seen anything like it.
So with these injuries then, Chris, combined with the fact that the Championship in general is just another sort of level compared to League One, how did the dressing room sort of find the season overall upon reflection?
I think the biggest thing probably frustrating, because I think we know and we've shown how good we can be when we've got that team together in that squad, that we're probably a match for anyone. So to sort of not have the chance to really go for it, and like these like injuries happen, you can't feel sorry for yourselves at the time, and you need to keep going and keep fighting. And it was hard because we were running out of players, and players were having to play through niggles and injuries. And I think there was one away to Queen's Park. I think we got beat 2-1 or something. The amount of boys that were playing through injuries that day and having just to try and get through it for the team was mad. And then you get a few boys back, and then you start to see what the season could look like when we go on a few run the games, winning and not getting beat. And it was kind of a reminder of how good we could have been. But like I say, the objective at the start of the season was to stay in the league and be competitive. And I don't think anyone could have seen sort of what was coming in terms of injuries, and no one could have seen that coming. So it was, in terms of now, is just a look back saying like we've done what we set out to do at the start of the season. And like I say, Inverness and Queen's Park both still fighting down there, like both good teams that probably wouldn't have seen themselves down there at the start of the season. So it just shows you, even though we have had injuries and we've had a tough season, we've still done enough to keep ourselves in the league, which is a positive.
Absolutely, and the squad deserve a lot of credit for that, because at times as a fan you were watching on thinking, where's all this bad luck coming from? What we have done to almost deserve this, just with the amount of injuries.
Hitting the post as well. How many times have we hit the post this season? Never seen like that either.
7 times in one game.
The Inverness game. So we couldn't buy a bit of luck for ages this year.
No, but as I was saying, Chris, sorry, it has been challenging at times, especially this season, but we obviously had the highs sort of last season as well, winning League One and doing it in style, as we mentioned earlier as well. So on reflection, how would you sort of, describe your time at Dunfermline so far?
Probably like up and down, a really good season. My first year and done everything that sort of I'd hoped for and what I was wanting to do. And then this year, just obviously personally, I think I've done well this year at times, and to get the Player of the Year and things like that has been good, but frustrating in terms of what I felt like we could have done at the start of the season, and if we'd had even just half the injuries that we did, how it could have been maybe slightly different. But like you say, you've got to take the highs with the lows, and hopefully it'll help us going into next season, and hopefully a good pre-season, and we can get everyone back fit and start afresh next year. And I think everyone will be ready to right a few wrongs that have happened this year, and we just need to use it as motivation. We've gave ourselves the chance to do that by staying in the league, and gives ourselves another crack at it next year. So hopefully, like I say, with everyone fit and everyone ready to go, then we can give it a good go.
You touched on it yourself. Obviously, next season is going to be a big year. I think the gaffer said that himself post-match. But yeah, you'll be looking forward to a break, as I'm sure. I think we all kind of are. Again, it's been a long year.
Yeah.
But by the sounds of it, the boys are refreshed and hungry to have a right good go next year.
No, I think definitely. I think everyone will enjoy the time off. I think, like you say, it's been one of those years that I think we all need it, just to hit the reset button and go again. But I think as soon as we come back or as soon as we have a couple of weeks off, everyone will be looking to next season and ready to go. And the boys that have obviously been out injured will be ready to get right back in it and show what we've been missing. And the boys that have kind of suffered through the games that we've been that have been frustrating and sort of feel like we're letting people down, that they'll be ready to prove people wrong and show that we are better than what we have been at times this season. So hopefully we can come back and start the next season, be positive and ready to go again.
Perfect. Well, Chris, thank you very much for your time. It's been great to talk to you. Again, well done in winning the Player of the Year, and we're looking forward to seeing you and the team back next season.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
Thanks, Chris. Cheers.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
So, David, that's the end of our first Inside Athletic podcast, the official club podcast of Dunfermline Athletic Football Club. Our first guest was Chris Hamilton. How did you find it?
Chris, brilliant. I mean, I could have sat here all night and asked him questions. But yeah, we had to let him go and get his tea at some point. So, Chris was great. Good to get an insight into a lot of the early career stuff. And to kind of what it's been like this season. We know it's, we've said it God knows how many times on tonight's show, it's been an up and down year. But Chris talks really well, and he's become a fan's favourite, and rightly so, for the way, he looks after himself, the way he applies himself on the pitch, off the pitch. He's been a real credit to the club since he signed. So yeah, really enjoyed that, and looking forward to seeing who else we can get on in the future.
Likewise, me too, David, me too. It was a very interesting first episode. Great to get a nice behind the scenes look at one of our players who's been a mainstay this season, and had a real impact on the first team, and the others around him. I just want to briefly touch on the end there. Chris Hamilton had mentioned that next season, they're looking to maybe improve on this season a little bit. He said he was a little frustrated at times this season with the way things are going. Surely it's great to have someone at the club showing that sort of ambition. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I think one thing I will say about this group of players, regardless of how results go and how the season's gone, there seems to be really good characters in that dressing room. Hammy's definitely one of them. Benny as well. There's loads of them, and it seems like they're a really tight-knit group, and they're all kind of striving for the same thing. And again, it's been a tough season, but there's still one game to go, and I think we still can finish fifth. So, the next season, I think the aim is obviously going to be to try and have a go at pushing for them playoffs. I don't think anyone at the club is going to shy away from that. And yeah, obviously the likes of Chris and Benny and that will be driving the standards and making sure we give it a right good go. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a good summer. Obviously, we all need a break, supporters, players, staff, I'm sure. But yeah, when we come back, it's going to be really interesting to see how we get on. That's all we have time for, I am afraid. Thank you very much for listening. My name is Andrew, and I've been joined by David. Any feedback, please let us know on how we can improve. Who would you like to see next as a potential guest? Any questions you'd like to ask our guest, just comment them down below or get in touch on Twitter. Thank you very much.